Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the AEC Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing founders and entrepreneurs of the AEC. Here with us, we have Diane Eisner. Diane Eisner is a seasoned tech executive with a proven track record in construction and IoT. As a CSO at WakeCap, she is driving innovative solutions to improve safety and productivity on job sites. Previously, she co-founded Cruise by Car, a platform aimed at de-risking the construction industry. Before that, she led leadership roles at Waze, Google, and the WeWork company. Diane is also an active angel investor and a dedicated community leader and serves on various boards. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
That was an impressive bio, to be honest. You have done so much.
It just means I've been around for a long time.
I don't think so. It's just that I bet you're extremely talented and smart. And for everybody that is listening, we just realize we live really close. And I ride my bike every day through the neighborhood that Diane's lives. So crazy.
That's such a crazy coincidence. Next time in person.
Yeah, next time in person is going to be much fun for sure. Did I miss something from your bio?
I don't think so. I think that's a good base to jump off from.
All right. I would love, because now we know you have done so much, I would love to learn how everything started. What did you study, and you always thought of becoming such a successful entrepreneur?
No, I think, it's funny that these days there's all these entrepreneurship studies in university, but that was not I'm going to start companies. In fact, when I was at university, I studied painting. I was going to be a painter. And then when I moved to New York, I realized that I was kind of a mediocre painter. I was just okay. So I picked up business like a lot of people do. But I'm also Filipina. So, we do things. We like to make things happen. And so entrepreneurship just naturally evolved from there. So, you have these ideas and you want to see them come into reality. And that's how I got into entrepreneurship. And I've just had such a great time starting companies, building companies, scaling companies.
It's just so interesting because I don't think if you think like I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur and I'm going to sell companies, and most likely you're never going to do it. I feel in general, I feel that the harder you try just to the goal, instead of I'm just going to do what I like and do it as best as I can. I think that path leads you to success, not the other way. I don't know how you think about it.
I don't know. I think, so much of it is about the purpose. You have to be so inside of what you're building every day, every night, 24/7. And if you can get that, if you feel the purpose, if you have the passion for what you're doing, then you can persevere through times when it's really dark. And I think anyone who's started a company knows that the dark days are very real. And so for most people, money or success is maybe not enough to push you through those dark days. True.
No, nobody prepares you for those dark days. It's tough. And people might think, well, you have already done it many times, or you're working on a big company and dark days cannot be that bad. And the larger the company, the harder the fall. So it's never easy.
And even if you have, say you have a successful track record as an entrepreneur, which I do. So then what? It's easier to raise money, for example, easier to hire a team, but it's not easier to build a product, to find product market fit. You might have some mental frameworks that are helpful, but man, construction tech is a whole different beast. It is, I think, one of the hardest things I've ever done. Harder than building Waze, harder. This industry is so intense. There's fragmentation everywhere, which makes it really hard to kind of find your market. You have, especially in the US, this idea that everybody wants their own individual workflow, going to do it my way. And so you have all this customization that you might not have to deal with otherwise. And just the complexity. I always say that if you're a superintendent, your job is as complex as a neurosurgeon. And it's really the case, right? I mean, if you're not on the ball, people could die. You have to deal with the money, you have to deal with the people, you have to deal with multiple subcontractors, you have to deal with multiple deliverables and timelines and changes every day. You're having to change. So just the number of things these guys have to focus on, it was mind-blowing. I underestimated how hard it was going to be when I started this company.
Yeah, and it's also hard because I think it's only one of the few industries where it's by project. Every project is different. The stakeholders that are going to be involved on the project are different. The locations are different. So it's so hard to set up standards when there is so much variation. Yeah. So, but I'm also curious. You now know that it's really hard, and this is not your first company in the industry. Why, after you selling your first company in the industry, you're still thinking on, hey, I'm going to keep working on this industry? What keeps you motivated to still, even if it's really hard, to keep working on the AC?
I love this. So first of all, my family was all truck drivers and laborers, construction laborers. And so I love the industry. I love the worker. I love the idea that I could do anything to make an impact on making their jobs easier, better, safer. So, that really drives me. The other thing is it's the scale of the opportunity is huge, especially now. I do a lot of work in Saudi Arabia. Construction in Saudi Arabia, we're talking about a $1.2 trillion infrastructure investment in the next, less than a decade. So if you can figure out how to deal with projects that are $200-300 billion and really make an impact there, then, anything else is just going to be much simpler. So I feel like trying to do something that's that at that scale is really fun. That's what we did at Waze, selling to Google. That's what I think a lot of people in technology, we love technology because you have the chance to do things in a bigger way, so that if you could do something positive, it will be for more than just your immediate community. And that really gets me going. And sorry, I guess there's a lot of things I'm passionate about. The team culture, right? Obviously, I love my team. My team was smaller, right? They're in Silicon Valley. They've built amazing companies, first people at Palantir, early at Google, lots of patents, super smart people. The guys at WakeCap, when I was in Riyadh a couple months ago, my first dinner was with 9 people from 8 countries. And they have about 150 people now, and I think we have more than 20 countries represented. It is so fun to work at that, with all just people from everywhere around the world that are hungry and have this common vision. It's very cool.
I don't know. I have so many things in common with what you said. I'm an architect, and so now I just do tech. I would never go back to you. I was a really bad architect. I'm not good at design at all. I was really bad architect, but I love technology. I'm really good at coding and anything related with technology and the AC. So I know what you're speaking about. And our industry is so special and I do agree that if you work on projects with that scale, we have that in common. I used to work with SPG and travel to Jeddah for many years. So, and I know how those
You
guys
know.
build.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's so different from the US, and I'm happy that now they're putting together that scale of projects that are going to be the largest in the world, like
Yeah.
Neom and like so many. What do you think are the main differences compared to, like, now you work in the US and Saudi Arabia? I bet you also work on other countries as well. Where do you see the main differentiator on the construction industry between these all these countries, besides materials, or you see it on the processes, labor, or where do you see the main differences?
So, I work a lot in Japan too. And each country is so different. The thing about Saudi, it's all scale. It's all scale. So there really is a chance to impact, for example, sustainability. You've got an entire country that's acting like a startup. So you have a lot of momentum about doing things in new ways, doing things in the right way, a lot of innovation, but it's like centralized enthusiasm and the desire to do things differently. People are excited, but it's also that they're so ambitious that you have to do things differently. The old way will not work. There is no Vision 2030 without construction tech, right? It would be Vision 2100 to do things the traditional way. And if you think about it, 98% of mega projects right now are already delayed and face cost overruns. With this much money at stake, you have to be careful not to do that. And this many workers. So we get judged on a lot of things in Saudi Arabia, obviously our ability to scale our technology and all of that, but also things like worker welfare. And I really like this. I like being a part of that. In Japan, for example, it is still, we work on a lot of large projects in Japan, but it is culturally, it's so different because it's a little more centralized there as well. So the process is strong. And so if you do a good job on a project, you really will quickly scale to other projects. In the US, there's almost like a different CEO for every project of every job, and it's the general super, the project teams. And I think in the US, we really love that we have autonomy from the ground up, but it could stop us from really innovating. And I know that, for example, that a few years ago, everybody had innovation teams, and that was going to really help. And then the innovation teams really, in some cases, just became a huge annoyance to the project teams because there's so much at stake. And it's like, here, try this, try that. And now, obviously, the teams have evolved to be supportive, but there's still, I find, a wall between innovation teams and project teams. So different things to offer. I think in the US, we're starting to do a lot more mega project work. And when you start talking to owners, particularly in government, the conversation changes. The owner conversation is more similar across all the different countries. The GC or project conversation is different in each country.
That's a really good point of view, but it's true. I think there is a wall, and it's just we did a study on the investment on innovation and like companies across the U.S. on the AC, and I'm just speaking about the construction phase, right? Mm-hmm. And it was just insane how only 1% of the companies in the US, which are the big firms, the ACOMs, the KPFs, the big firms, that they do have their own internal innovation teams, and they have been able to, like you said at the beginning, being an annoyance. And nowadays they're part of the process, and they understand when they can try something new, when they cannot try something new, and how to scale something from one project to multiple projects on the same company. But the thing, I think there is also a wall there because the rest of the companies, 90% of the rest of the companies, they don't have internal teams and they rely on external companies, which is amazing, right? We need more startups out there. But the problem is that most of these companies, I don't know, is because there is a disconnection in terms of how these companies communicate, or because there is a lack of companies. That might be the case. I know on the design phase there are a lot of construction startups, but on the construction phase itself, there are not that many, and they feel that they're not like enough tools for them, or I don't know. That's what we have been getting feedback out of these companies. I don't know how you think about that.
I think that in the last 5 years, the industry's been trying to get away from point solutions. But there's still a lot of point solutions that call themselves platforms. And so I feel like there's a lot of vendor fatigue. You know, a project can't have 16 different innovations that are not connected. So we're starting to see now, I feel like a lot of consolidation with some of the smaller context solutions to create things that are truly valuable across a job. And that'll be interesting to see how people align themselves there. Because too many point solutions. I feel like there's a bunch of construction tech companies, but the ones who are able to get over that, say, $10 million ARR line are few. And I think until you cross 10 million is kind of arbitrary, but it's relevant. Until you cross $10 million, let's just say, you're not really a relevant player. You just don't have enough under your belt.
No, and it makes sense. It's just a measurement. It's like, 1 million or 2 million if you want to be invested on a service company, or like it makes sense. It's just that it takes a lot of time, like, or at least for many companies takes a lot of time. And we all know the example of Procore, right? That took them long time to start growing. Do you think there is a way to shorten that, to speed up the process of given the fact that, let's say, you already have a successful, or you're actually solving a pain point and you have a good platform? And do you have any tips that you think it can be valuable to shorten that period of time from 10 years that took Procore to, I don't know, 5?
So I have a couple thoughts on that. Some are probably obvious. The first one that's obvious is, who are your first few customers and how much value can you prove? What's the ROI? And then you can use that to scale out. It's hard to get those first customers, though. It's easy to get the first project. It's not easy to get the first big GC or a big owner who will mandate you, and so that you can work on lots of projects for them. I think that's really important. Can you prove the ROI? And I don't think that there's a faster way to accelerate than through showing your value in dollars, by the way, too. I think showing your ROI in terms of dollars is important. And it took us a long time, but we were doing it by hours. Like, you can save 15 hours. That kind of translates into this. And that's just not good enough. What's the bottom line? We had a customer recently in Saudi that did an internal proposal based on a POC we did for them. And this is from the customer, not from us. And it was to get us mandated across all the projects. And they came up with, I'm not going to say the exact number because I don't want to have people thinking, oh, who was it? But I'll just say this. The internal business case that they made for WakeCap was actually adding more than $1 billion a year to their bottom line.
Huge.
So not our numbers, but you get this kind of proof on the ground. You get your customers saying that kind of thing for you, and you're on.
Yeah, true. So hard to do, but true. And sometimes I feel like we have all been on early stage startups, and it's always tempting, to just build something and just do it without listening to our clients. And that's the worst mistake. Is like, you need to keep your first clients or your first people have interest on your idea close at the beginning and make sure you're adding a lot of value from the start. Otherwise, it's going to be harder. Yeah,
it's so hard. And even to get them to spend that much time with you as well, to give you the feedback. And then our early customers, they're like still giving us so much feedback all the time. I think I have one customer that over the years, I think we did over 100 updates of their requests, this kind of thing.
It's a lot.
And so there has to be a limit in some way too, to where is the real value you're providing. And sorry.
You're good. We are going to edit that afterwards. So.
Okay. So where is the real value you're providing? And where are you functioning more like a service company? So it's always a fine line.
Yeah. And it varies so much. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say the other way to accelerate that's maybe less obvious is to think about what's unique to your company. Where can your product market fit be that might be maybe, I don't want to say niche because that sounds small, but like for us, we really became successful first in Japan before the US. And for WakeCap, obviously focusing on Saudi was huge. And the founder is from Saudi, but he was living here. And it was a big deal for him to move back to Saudi Arabia, decide, okay, I'm really going to invest here. So there might be non-obvious things, but going to chase the ENR, list companies, they're overchased. It's what's a unique go-to-market, a truly unique go-to-market that can help you accelerate.
No, I agree. It's just hard sometimes for sure finding that, like any other strategy, right? Like it's every investor says the same. Like you have to sell in a unique way. Well, it's easier said than done.
And you can't come up with it, right? Just like with your team, you come up with it through some kind of customer insight or some value insight. Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree on that. And going back to like startups in general on the AC, we know that other industries, like, I don't know, let's do the obvious, right? Like B2C, like social media, it's so crowded, it's so hard to get there. Like you're not ever gonna make it easily if you try, right? And not even investors are attracted nowadays, right? I feel construction, it's different. Like B2B construction, a lot of like investors are looking to construction and they see a big opportunity. But you feel the market currently, if someone wants to start a startup on the construction, it's like a blue ocean, or it's something that it's a little bit crowded now?
I think there's a lot of crowded pieces. I feel like you really have to, there's a lot of opportunity in construction. There's also a lot of dead bodies, right? Those companies who just couldn't make it, or they're hanging out at $1 million a year in revenue or less, or they're just not going anywhere. And if you've been around for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you're still there, I think there are a lot of those. And so investors will need to see why you're going to be a big company. How are you going to break out of that? And if you can come up with a convincing story or convincing product or convincing customer, then the opportunity is big. But I think what startups need to do now is prove how they're not going to be small.
Yeah, which is, it's hard to prove when it takes so much time, but it's possible, it's doable. It's just,
your story
it's also
better be really unique and have some kind of secret advantage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel it's also the implementation, right? I think it's something that a lot of companies don't think about. And in our industry, it's critical because it might be that, I don't know, innovation managers looks at your product and thinks, oh, this is amazing, and I love it and I want to buy it. But then when he has to convince other teams to implement it, it may be super hard, and you might end up not selling to a client just because it's not easy to implement. So I think that it's also a key in our industry, and a lot of companies are not considering that. It should be super easy to implement. Otherwise,
it has to be. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Really low onboarding. One of the reasons that WakeCap, in their original connected worker IoT solution, one of the reasons that people started putting them on the job site is because there was zero intrusion. They had a zero intrusion policy, especially on these big job sites. There can't be any training. You can't change out the batteries, over the lifetime of a project. It just has to be zero intrusion. So they did all this work to integrate specific sensors into things that people were already using, like, for example, the hard hats or the lanyards or whatever. And then a lot of work on their mesh network side to make sure that none of the anchors or gateways, nothing would need to have their battery changed. So what you said, it's really, really important. And then the other thing is, you were talking about the innovation team might like it, but then you have to sell it into the projects. And the sales cycles here are so long. Like, I could never have imagined. Like, it took me, I have a couple customers that took me 18 months to 2 years to sell. I never could have imagined that going in when I was making my first plan. Imagine I told the VCs, it's going to take me 2.5 years to sell this thing. I'd be like, get out of here. Luckily, I had no idea. It's very long sales cycles here at the beginning.
Yeah. At the beginning.
Yeah.
Once you, no, absolutely. And I also do have a big respect for like entrepreneurs because you deal not only with software, right? You also have to deal with IoT, which is hardware. And I also have big respect for people doing that, because it's much, much harder to deal with physical things. Not only so it's already hard just doing software for the AC. If you have to do hardware and software for the AC, is the hardest thing you can do ever, period. So can you tell me a little bit about how you handle that side? Because I've never done it, and I'm not sure I will ever do it.
I think it's order of operations, right? So they started first with the hardware side. And the cool thing about hardware and AEC is part of the reason that construction, we're talking about all the ways that it's complex, just the sources of data that you need to put together to get a true understanding of actual progress or actual billable hours, compared to what you should pay, verified time, all this. There's so many different sources. And the cool thing is, when you have hardware, when you have an IoT solution, you have a ground truth set of data. And without that, you're just making assumption on assumption on assumption. So actually in AEC, I think that it was super smart to go first with IoT, to go with the hardware, even though it sounds like a nightmare. They ended up building their own factories. So yeah, it's a lot to think about. And then they got into, all right, now what do we do with this data, right? So order of operations, you can't do everything as a startup. So first they were collecting the data, and then they were like doing all the timekeeping and connecting with all of the HR systems to do the verification, the payroll system. So it's actually now verified time. And then they were able to do, right, and then they bought our company, and now they're really nailing the productivity tracking, because you can tie all of that ground truth data with not just the connected worker, the who, but the what. What's the schedule activity, and how those things play together. And you become the proprietary data source. And I think that completely changes construction management, by the way. Ground truth data that's useful with the right analytics and, okay, I'll say AI and machine learning. But once you have a lot of data, that is really an incredible way to enrich it so that you can really optimize your own project, every single project.
Can you tell me, like, can be for sure anonymous, I just care about some case that you have gathered information, you have found something that you think, wow, we or the client realized like, whoa, we could never think of this without the data?
It happens all the time. So our time verification system, we have seen up to 40% over reported hours. We're talking about 15x ROI just on that one software module on top of our system. It's crazy.
Just hours.
Just hours. Because think about it. You are billing based on assumptions. We actually know when you're there or when you're not there. Then inside of that, we can find things like congestion. Why is everybody hanging out here? Oh, because you're making them go through this system that takes a long time. It could be losing 40 minutes a day there. Once we see this happening in the data, the system can make a recommendation of how to change it. Then there's active versus inactive zones. Are people actually spending time in the trailer, or are they spending time in the zone where they're, supposed to be working? There's a lot of stuff like that comes together to do this. This is one thing that the U.S. is not used to, because the relationship between the owner and the GC is a bit different here, where the owner often doesn't want to touch, right, due to mostly legal issues, right? I don't want to touch it. It's not my. And the GC doesn't always want transparent information. They like the overbilling, right? It's
true. Yeah, it's true.
It's working for them. But the GC, then when you pass down to the sub, then the GC wants it with the sub, but then the sub doesn't. So where is the world in which everybody wants to be aligned? And we say it, but do we really mean it? I don't know. So
yeah, I think that contracts and the way construction is managed in the US and it's going to change. It's like IPD, IPD is in the end it's going to be something like that, because otherwise, it's like you said. I was speaking the other day with a developer here in Miami, and I was telling him, like, you know what, I can help you if you want on the efficiency side, like to suggest you with products to use. Or I was just consulting him because he's a good friend. I was not even because I was interested on business. I was just helping him, and he was like, you know what? I don't care about that. He was like, I just care that I can sell more apartments, that I have more people interested on buying my products. And I was like, well, not really, because if what you're building ends up being 10% cheaper, you have better margins, or you can sell more because you can sell cheaper. So, and he was like,
and it's the delays, right? It's all lost revenue on your operation if you're 6 months behind schedule, or a year behind schedule, or longer, right? Which happens all the time. The other thing is, developer GC probably depends on the specific project, but the insurance is such a mess, and the regulation. And so the other side of this timekeeping stuff is the safety, right? You know where people are, you evacuate, the sensors have heat stress, you have, a fall detection, you have all these things that are on the safety side. And if you can prove a safety track record, then your insurance is going to look better. Just the risk, right? You have to take each risk line by line by line by line by line.
Yeah, saving lives. That it's
saving lives.
Nobody thinks about that. I'm just being rough saying this, but typically companies don't think about that because they think it's not going to happen to me. I have an insurance. It's not something that you're overly cautious about it when you should be. And it's even worse on large projects. I remember when I was working on a big project that it was a $2 billion project in Nevada, and it was a high tower, and there were always people falling or things like that. There were nets, so nobody died. But even then, I always thought it's not a way that I can put a sensor that when a guy is next to let's say to the border and doesn't have a rope, or it would just trigger an alarm or something. This should be easy to fix. It's just crazy that this is happening nowadays.
It is easy to fix. And so we do this too. We have a customer where, so part of our system also has CCTV with AI. And so we have things like automated safety observations or manual safety observations. We had a 91% decrease in safety issues because we were being transparent about them and people knew they were being watched. The thing is, in the US, nobody wants to be watched over anything. You stay away, let me do my job, I know what I'm doing.
True.
Okay, and people are dying, and I just,
I've been doing this my whole life. You will not.
This is a cultural conversation in the US that's going to happen in its own time. And it can't be pushed by a construction tech company or a regulation. It has to come. And I do think, actually, I think the unions are going to be very good for this. Very pro-worker. And at a certain moment, the unions will decide the safety stuff is very important. Or even that they use the time verification on the other side. I had 6 guys there, and it's always the sub that gets screwed, right? Do they say, I'm sorry, there's this terrible American saying that shit rolls down hill. But it always ends up being the worker. And so I think there's a chance for the unions to come out and be like, all right, we need to have this conversation and decide what to do.
Yeah, we go back to the same, like contracts and the way or the earnings of the project need to be shared. And also the risks. It's like, I remember when, BIM was introduced. It's crazy. The US is the country that has more implementation of BIM worldwide. And it's not because there are legislations, or it's just because the owners pushed for that to be done. And I feel that once risks like that are shared with owners, they will push for solutions to be implemented. So
I totally agree. And in Saudi, that's happening. The owners are mandating us on every project. That's one of the things driving our crazy growth. Yeah.
Interesting. But it's because of they if something happens on the construction side, they share part of the risk, or why is that happening there and not here, or all the countries, not only the US?
The risk structure is totally different there. But the owner also wants the control. So, for example, one of our customers is Aramco. And so we're on almost every Aramco project. And they like, some of these bigger companies, they like to institute processes that are going to be consistent across, so that they know how to project everything from revenue to, again, they call it worker welfare, to taking care of the workers and what's the safety and what's my risk. These very large companies, these very large owners think corporate, and they want consistent systems, consistent people and partners.
Interesting. They're doing that. But I don't think this is a US problem. I think like most countries have the same problem of risks. So But I do agree it's going to change, and also it is even going to change in terms of design. Like I remember one time I heard an architect that he was designing the facade so then you can install it from the inside without having somebody hanging. And I was like, but man, why you're not in a bad way. I was like, how do you care about this? Because you're a designer, so nobody's going to push you for this. And he was like, yeah, I'm not going to be on the construction phase, but I care for other people. And for me, it was an eye opener. Like, we should even be designed. Like, you can get the same results. The building is going to look the same way, but if you design it in a certain specific way, like, you can save lives. So there's no need for you to not think about it. So the same. Designers should be involved on the risks on building something as well.
And even, I don't know, as an architect, what you think about this, but even offsite building, there's an entire innovation district in St. Louis being created right now. I think it's called Gateway South. We worked with them somewhat. So it's this very large innovation district, all about offsite building. So it's the suppliers, the materials companies, the vendors, the big offsite building companies. And then St. Louis is great because you have the Mississippi River there. So we did all the transportation network stuff so you can get these pieces out and to the rest of the country very easily. But there is something there where you can control the materials. So that's going to be better for sustainability. You can control the working conditions. So a lot of benefits there. The constraint is the design. So how do you merge those two?
Yeah, it is. And in general, I don't know why, and I think there's a lot of discussion in our industry about, like the Cateras of the world that have not been successful, right? And because I think for everybody it's obvious, like if you can do something on a factory, the quality and the time, everything is going to be much better, and then you can just transport it to the site. But it's not working on large scale, and I don't think it's not working because the industry doesn't need that. I just think that nobody has found the right way to do it, and it's started that comes and find the right way to do it on a large scale.
And it will happen. And I don't think Catera failed because of their idea. I think they failed on execution and arrogance. And, we can think of a half dozen companies. I mean, WeWork was another one, a company that built themselves on arrogance and a good idea, but just didn't pull it off. You could go so far as to say Theranos, but that was more of fraud. But where's ego end and fraud begins? And so I think that was the Catera issue, not the demand.
No, absolutely. Well, it was managed by people that didn't know much about the business. They didn't care to know more about the business, right? So we work, for me, it's just different because it's like, I'm not sure it was a fraud. It was not a success because it was a success for some of them, and it was a success for Adam. So,
yeah.
It depends. It depends how you measure with WeWork. But the good thing about WeWork, though, is that, and I know you were working at WeWork, right?
I was the CEO of the cities division. I started it with my co-founder, and I had a blast. But I was only there for 9 months before the implosion.
But then I do think that WeWork was one of the best startups out there for the industry itself, because there are so many entrepreneurs that came out of WeWork or technology leaders that came out of WeWork. It was like a big school in university for people to learn about technology and mix construction and technology.
Like PayPal was, the PayPal mafia. It's true. A lot of it came out of it. And so many people believed the mission, that kind of culture of community and community first. It was, I think, ultimately exploited and not real. But I always said that my favorite drink is Kool-Aid, drinking the Kool-Aid. I love the story. We're going to live in one wonderful community, like a giant kibbutz everywhere. And I like this. I like this. But then who's running it? Who's making the decisions? And is it real?
No, absolutely. And I think that it's also a problem because if you think about it, like I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I speak with a lot of entrepreneurs from our industry. And the crazy thing is, like, when you come from the industry, it's hard to be an entrepreneur because our mindset coming from the industry is like, if you're an architect, you're going to design houses or big buildings. If you're an engineer, you're going to just calculate structures. And the mindset they give you is that you're going to be an employee and you're going to be the best employee, but that's the only, or if you're not going to be an employee, you're going to have your small boutique firm where you're going to be a star architect. And it's hard, to break that. And even when you start working and you have your own startup, it's also hard not to follow your ego and say, you know what, I know this, and I know how I'm going to build this product because I'm an architect and I'm building for other architects, and that's so stupid. I've done it myself, and it's so stupid because it's the first mistake you shouldn't be making.
Well, I mean, it's always in balance, right? Because too much is maybe not good, but the entrepreneur's ability to say, I want to do it this way. It's the vision of the entrepreneur is what makes these things come from nothing. So it's a balance.
No, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like you cannot, you gave a really good example when you want to implement features that one of your favorite clients wants, and you just implement feature after feature, and you end up being a hostage of your client, and you're providing a service which you are not paid for. So
exactly, it's like the cheapest service provider ever.
yeah. Absolutely, but I do think the industry it's changing so much, and we even have now VCs that that are only construction focused VC firms, and it's amazing having investors that are only focusing on in our industry. I don't know how was the raising process for you. I know you have a good track record, but did you went to investors that came from our industry, or you didn't care about that?
No, I didn't care about it. I think it would have been helpful, but living in Silicon Valley for a long time, the relationships are really important to me, and to trust your investors and know that they're awesome investors and they're going to help you build your business. That's what I was thinking. And I didn't bring in anybody from construction venture. I think if I started now, I would, though, because I think it helps a lot with the relationships and the credibility and the vetting. I think it's helping startups a lot. But I wasn't thinking about that, and I think I raised a pretty large seed round for the industry. It's not large necessarily for tech, or a little bit for tech, but I thought that what I saw of the construction VCs is that they were lowballing on valuation.
True.
But now I realize too that it might be partially because most companies have a constrained revenue opportunity for longer than in the traditional tech world. So maybe that's why. And
or maybe a balance. Yeah. Well, it might be also a balance between, having, because even VCs sometimes are just VCs created within a large construction firm. So you can get those kind of investors and give you a lot of, feedback and on the tool, and be interested in actually using the tool, and be investor and client at the same time. And then you can have other investors that come from other industries that just give you the other
strategics. Yeah, I think what was funny? Coming in, I had a bias against strategic investors, because you don't want to come in and then you constrain your opportunity because you can't work with their competitors. But also just the way I was thinking, and this is maybe, I probably changed my thinking, but when I was first raising money for Cruise by Core, I was thinking strategics come Series B, Series C. They're dumb money that follows the real VCs. And that's changed, actually. Because, when I was raising money for, say, Waze back in the day, the strategics were later stage. And now, especially in construction, it's so complicated. One thing we both agree on that we've established in this podcast is it's so complex that the VCs become a level of vetting. So having a strategic in earlier is actually is handy. Also, when I started in this industry like 5 years ago, I feel like construction venture, like VCs and the CVCs, they weren't new, but they were pretty new. And they didn't have a lot of money, and they didn't have a lot of influence, and they were not very seasoned. And I think I've really seen it elevate over the last 5 years.
True. No, absolutely. I agree on that. Absolutely. Um, and I know you're extremely busy, so I don't want to take more of your time, but can I ask you a couple of ping pong questions before we wrap this up?
Yes. And by the way, that was super fun. So don't worry.
All right. All right. It was great. It was great, at least for me. I learned so much that I'm extremely grateful and happy. Um, can you tell me what do you think is going to be the next big trend on the AC?
I guess I'll focus in construction tech and I'll say everything construction finance.
Interesting. Makes sense. If you could collaborate with any person in history, which person would you choose?
Collaborate historically. Okay. Can I say a couple things?
Yep.
So
Go for
one
it.
is I want to collaborate with contemporaries right now. And I'll tell you, I have this project that I'm going to do whenever I stop doing startups, which is I want to retrace the maritime spice route on a boat, through Southeast Asia, Horn of Africa, Arabia. And I want to do it with Wes Anderson because I want to make it like a magical realism thing. And I want to do it with Yuval Harari because I want to also focus on the historical part, but like folklore, the history of the folklore. So I want to be on a boat with those guys and collaborate on making some narrative for 3-6 months. I'm going to do that. That's one collaboration that I was thinking of. And then if I think more historically, wow. I mean, this is probably cliche, but how could you not beg to collaborate with Da Vinci on anything? I would be his intern for life, to be around that mind. I would love it.
That was insane. Think about all the stuff that he did at that time. Like, it's unbelievable. And then, which one is your favorite building in the world, and have you ever visited?
Okay, so I think I'm so bad at single answers. Well, I told you when we were like doing our introduction that I used to spend summers in Barcelona for a long time. And so one thing I love about Sagrada Familia is, or Gaudi in general, is so playful. But this idea of like continuously unfinished, evolving, organic, I don't know, every time I go, it's different. I think now it's finished, but
No, it's almost finished.
almost. Yeah, it's always almost.
Well,
I love
technically,
this.
next
You know?
year supposedly. Yeah, I live in Barcelona for 1 year. So yeah, I don't know. It's just insane. It's insane. The
Insane.
building.
It's so beautiful and so rich in history and yeah. All over Spain, these churches. I was in one in Toledo. I love buildings that surprise you. And as an architect, you're going to think these are really boring, right? But I was at this like very small church in Toledo, in Spain also. And then you're just walking around. You don't know what to expect. You're not there for the art. And then boom, there's an El Greco right there. You're like, wait, what? It's like sitting in this little church. So buildings that surprise you, not even necessarily for the architecture. Like I'm on the board of this trucking company, and we went to their new one of their new terminals in Memphis, Tennessee. And these terminals are insane. They just look like boxes with doors, right? But you go inside and you see all of the activity, and they're constantly optimizing for how this goes, and so proud of the like fresh paint job on this, and so proud of their facility and this like functional spaces. I find really inspiring too. But I do love the design side. My house in Palo Alto, I co-designed it. I was involved in the design. I really love it. It's a very special place. Looks like you're outside.
Yeah, you didn't like. I don't think any design is stupid. And I was once traveling on Southeast Asia, and we were with a group of architects, and there was like this really old architect that was like an eminence in architecture, and we're just passing by an old house, like just a regular house, and the guy stood there and he was like, he took his measuring tape, he started measuring like a small stair, and I was like, sir, what are you doing? And it's like, this is the most perfect stair that I've seen in my life. And he was walking up and down, and he was like, feel how it feels when you do the steps. And he was like taking them. And for me, it was like magic. How do you appreciate something so that might look so common, but at the same time, it was true. It was like when you like we have a visitor. It's nice.
This is my dog.
Oh,
Want to come
so
say hi?
nice.
You can keep asking questions.
Yeah. No, and that was the last one, but hey, she's so nice. But yeah, I think that summarizes all. It would be great. I don't know if you can tell everybody where they can know more about your company and connect with you as well.
Great. Thank you. Wait, did you want me to say something now? Or
yeah,
no?
if you can just say the website, or like
okay.
they can get you on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever.
LinkedIn, just / Diane Eisner, DianneIsnor. And then I think it's WakeCap.com. I think it's just WakeCap.com. That's it. Just ping me.
That's the best thing. Just ping you, and they will get the answers.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm sure it's WakeCap.com.
All right. WakeCap.com. But yeah, thanks so much for this enlightening conversation. I love what you guys are doing for our industry, and I'm humbled to hear all the stuff that you have done. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in ascworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.